Toledo, human resources professional Crystal Dixon found out that even in her off time, her views about the homosexual lobby's attempts to use the 1960s civil rights movement as a parallel to their current agenda could not be openly expressed without consequences from her employer.
I was employed as the Interim Associate Vice President for Human Resources with the University of Toledo. I had worked for the university for a little over 6 years, and I was responsible for everything including recruitment, hiring, benefits, compensation, labor relations, and training. In early April of this year, I happened to read an editorial in the local newspaper, the Toledo Free Press, and an editorial was written by a Mr. Michael Miller entitled Gay Rights and Wrongs. Mr. Miller wrote in his opinion that he felt that the gay rights movement, the rights of homosexuals, were on par, if you will, with the civil rights struggles of African Americans. He also indicated the civil rights of persons with disabilities. I woke up with a divine mandate, if you will, to write my own personal opinion, rooted and grounded in my Christian faith, responding to that editorial. My opinion was very fact-based. It was very respectful. It's important that your viewers understand and realize that as a Christian, I have a love for everyone regardless of their sexual orientation. At the same time, I do not condone the practice of homosexuality. In particular, I had an issue regarding equating homosexuality with civil rights of blacks, because civil rights by definition are unalienable rights based upon non-changing, naturally occurring identities such as race or gender or even disability. And to equate homosexuality with the civil rights of African Americans or even persons with disabilities, I believe first of all is intellectually dishonest, and it really denigrates the contributions of blacks and persons with disabilities. I cannot wake up tomorrow and not be a black woman. I am a black woman. God created me that way. I'm very pleased to be black. And the facts are that sexual activity, sexual orientation is something that's very fluid. And every year, thousands of homosexuals make the decision to leave the homosexual lifestyle and to practice as heterosexuals. Many of those people make those decisions because of a transformative experience with Jesus Christ. And so again, to equate something that's very changeable, very fluid, with something that's not changeable, not fluid, really is not a fair equating.
That's a sentiment shared by renowned commentator Bishop Harry Jackson. He's the co-author of Personal Faith, Public Policy.
We have people who are elevated to protected status who really don't deserve it. I kind of earned my blackness the old-fashioned way. I was born into it. But I've known many people who've been delivered, if you will, out of the gay lifestyle. And so someone who's gay today but may not be gay tomorrow, I've got a problem with them being classified, if you would, in the same status as I am as African American. Everybody wants to piggyback on something that worked. So what we've got is a grassroots movement, the civil rights movement, which was morally based and led by a combination of lay people and leadership that were clergy that was very effective. And all the techniques of the civil rights movement are now being used by the gays. So I don't blame them for trying to copy the success. The problem, though, is that I believe it actually confuses our message.
The day after Dixon's article appeared in the Toledo Free Press, she got a call from her supervisor who told her people were showing up in his office to complain about her comments. She reiterated that she had written the article in her free time and not as a representative of the university. Later that day, she was sent home and told a meeting on her conduct would be held the following week.
I asked him what was my sin, and his response was, we don't know yet.
When we come back, the university takes its case to the media. When Crystal Dixon submitted a guest opinion to the Toledo Free Press critical of the homosexual lobby's use of the 1960s civil rights movement to promote their agenda, she found that her employer, the University of Toledo, wouldn't recognize her constitutionally protected right to free speech. This was the case even though she was not on the job or representing the university in any way when she wrote it. Their actions against her constitute a grievous attempt to silence her faith-based viewpoint. University of Toledo President Lloyd Jacobs brought local media attention to Dixon's situation with an open letter to the editor denouncing Dixon's comments. Even though she had not identified herself as a university employee in her letter, Dr. Jacobs named her in his letter and stated it was necessary for him to repudiate much of her writing. His letter went on to state he would be taking certain internal actions in this instance. 4 days after the letter was published, Crystal Dixon was fired. In the letter of termination, also from Dr. Jacobs, Dixon was told there is a loss of confidence in you as an administrator. The letter indicated the termination was based on the public position you had taken in the Toledo Free Press.
Well, it was clear that my rights, first of all, as an American citizen, were being violated. I expressed my personal opinion, again, grounded in my Christian faith, with respect to an issue of public interest and public concern, which any American has a right to do so. There is no exemption in the Constitution for human resources practitioners.
Evaluations of Dixon's performance as an HR professional prior to the incident showed she was considered an exemplary employee. Her scores were at the top of the range, and a previous supervisor added this handwritten note to her evaluation form. Crystal continues to set the standard for an HR professional manager. Her willingness to rethink issues despite personal biases speak to her extraordinary character. What a great person to be working with. Brian Rooney of the Thomas More Law Center is representing Dixon in her wrongful termination lawsuit.
We hear that universities are the bastions of liberalism and forward-thinkingness and openness, but in reality, places like University of Toledo are only about openness when it's their viewpoint, when it hits specific wickets that they find acceptable. And our Constitution is specifically meant to protect someone's free speech, especially the free speech that may be unpopular.
Dixon believes there is also a double standard at work in this case. An employee with a liberal viewpoint who wrote an article in her official capacity with the university was treated very differently when her views came to light.
One highly ranking employee just 6 months prior to my writing the article had written an opinion with her official title with the University of Toledo, and in that opinion she opined that any individual who was in opposition to domestic partner registries with the city of Toledo was a bigot, and if they were religious, they were a religious bigot. And I found that opinion to be not only unprofessional but very offensive, and no action was taken by the university in that person's case. And she happened to be a white lesbian.
When contacted about the firing, the university responded with this statement. Crystal Dixon was in a position of special sensitivity as Associate Vice President for Human Resources. The issues are therefore not about freedom of speech, but about her ability to do that job subsequent to her statements to the Free Press.
She was writing an opinion piece, responding to an opinion piece from a Toledo Free Press, which is what is envisioned by our founding fathers, that there's this open dialogue on issues of public concern. She didn't write as a human resources person from the University of Toledo. She wrote as Crystal Dixon. And our Constitution says specifically that this is what is protected. We know that there are cases by the Supreme Court, specifically on point in this case, where private citizens speaking on matters of public concern are allowed to express their free speech rights. Now, she was speaking as a human resources director from the University of Toledo, then the university would have grounds to fire her or demote her in some way, but she wasn't. And the university specifically said that she was being fired because of her viewpoint on the radical homosexual agenda vis-a-vis her Christianity, and that's what the Constitution is meant to protect.
Bishop Harry Jackson believes we as Christians have a responsibility to speak in the public square.
We have an evangelistic role. We're to make disciples of all nations, and that means winning individuals to Christ, giving them a Christian worldview. But secondly, I believe there is a prophetic role that the church has, and we're to be salt and light in the world. Jesus told us in Matthew chapter 5 that our actions and activities we're supposed to speak. So we're compelled by the Word of God to both witness personally, and I believe that there's a prophetic declaration that must impact the culture.
Crystal Dixon has high hopes for her lawsuit.
My hope out of this suit is that no one will have to suffer what I had to suffer. Again, I think we need to send a message strongly that Americans do have a right to voice their opinions, even if those opinions are not quote unquote politically correct.